Podcast City Network.
Hey fans, this is Chris Wilson of the Podcast City Network, and we're here for a brand new spanking show called Final Score. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with my co-host, Stephen Morelli. How are you today, and thank you for joining us.
I'm good. Thank you for having me, but let's talk sports, man.
You know what? I like where you're going with this, so let's dig right into it. And I love digging into one of the most tantalizing, crazy things going on right now, and that's in the NBA. So in the NBA, we had a little confrontation. Oh, yeah, that great confrontation with the LA Lakers and the Houston Rockets. You know what? I'll let you give the rundown. What are your thoughts on that?
Just, I don't know. Ingram definitely provoked that whole thing. I mean,
I absolutely agree.
Pushing Harden there when, there's no need to push Harden. So that being said, and then the whole Rondo CP3, they've never liked each other. So you could see that coming.
Now, with that, though, there was some suspensions that were handed down by the NBA. What actually happened with that situation?
Ingram, for the instigator, which I couldn't even believe, he got 4 games, right?
Dirt cheap.
Yeah, right. And
that
then
is dirt cheap.
Rondo 3, right, and CP3 2, which they show that video of CP3 getting spit on. What do you think about that?
I tell you what, when I saw that, I couldn't quite believe it, but you can't really tell in the actual video, but you do see certain head motion. So, but honestly, you got to think you're in a live game situation. There's a lot of emotions going on. So,
what do you do if someone spits on you in a game, man?
Not react and throw a left hook. I can tell you that.
I know, man, but that's just crazy, man. That's crazy. And
that's just emotion. But, you also look at the Lakers as a whole and how they started with LeBron now joining the team in the offseason. They went with an 0-3 start to start, but now we're on a 2-game winning streak.
You saw that?
I did. Where are they going with this? Nowhere?
All hype.
Oh, man.
They're going to be fighting for that 7th, 8th playoff spot. But nothing more than that. They need another piece.
Definitely.
Getting up there in age. He can still do it and all that, but they need another piece.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to need a little bit more to get that team over the top and progress it to where it's going to be an NBA Finals quality team. So we'll really see how that one will work out. But we're going to make a quick switch here to Major League Baseball and a great series, mainly by one side, the Boston Red Sox. They're doing nothing but shellacking, it seems like, the Dodgers in these first 2 games and have taken a 2-game lead.
Chris, they're too good. They are too good. I mean, they're hitting 8 runs a game,
mm-hmm.
and then, somewhere in that area, and then the pitching's good. I mean...
Yeah, I think in the first 2 games alone, they had 19 hits. I think it was 12 home runs. Like, that's ridiculous. Who puts up those kind of numbers?
And Jackie Bradley. I mean, he's on a tear again.
Yeah, your ALCS MVP. That guy is just playing out of his mind. And
Mookie.
And you can't forget Mookie. They're just such a complete team with David Price and everybody. You have a great bullpen. You have great hitting. You're able to make smart plays in the outfield. Do you think the Dodgers have a chance?
No. They might have a chance tonight. I know David Price just went in the game.
Yeah.
But no, they don't have a chance in this series,
And it's crazy. I'm going to come with an update right now. The series is tied, or the game, is tied 1-1, top of the 10th. And as you said, they brought David Price in, who pitched 6 innings yesterday in Game 2.
That's crazy.
I know.
What are they?
You're going to pitch this guy to death, it seems like. So they brought him in for 6 innings in that game. Now he's pitching in the 9th inning to try and save the Red Sox in this one. Do you think they're going to overwork their bullpen for this?
No, I think they're trying to save the bullpen. I think that's why they're putting Price in, to save the bullpen.
Yeah, they might just very well be doing that. And honestly, if you're up already 2 games and you've already broken your franchise record for wins going from 105 to 108, obviously you're doing something right. So, it might be a good move for them. But we'll see how it goes. And hopefully later on we will have an update on this game and tell you maybe Boston will go up 3-0. But it's currently tied 1-1, each team having a home run apiece.
Must win for the Dodgers.
Absolutely
a
must win.
Hang in it, it's a must win for the Dodgers.
Absolutely a must win. So who do you think takes this game?
I could see LA stealing this one, but I don't think it matters. Boston in 6 games.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to have to agree with that one. But from there, though, we definitely got to make sure that we pay the power bill for Podcast City Network and Final Score. So if you just take a moment, here are some fine messages for some great people that help support Podcast City Network.
Hey fans, here at Podcast City Network, we have a lot of great shows. on all of our great social media outlets. PodcastCity.net.
Facebook.com/Podcast City Network. Hit that thumbs up. You can send a tweet to Podcast City Network on Twitter at Podcast City Net.
Only on Podcast City Network.
Everett Lee here from the Everett Lee Show podcast. Be sure to check out the Everett Lee Show podcast on podcastcity.net.
Hey fans, make sure that you check out the Chris Carnage Show, as we'll be covering everything following fantasy sports football, CCE Presents, and anything else I feel like talking about. So make sure that you catch the Chris Carnage Show only on the Podcast City Network.
All right, and we are back, and that was some great messages from some of our great supporters here at Podcast City Network, and has brought us this brand new show, Final Score, the very first sports show on Podcast City Network. But again, like you said to start the show, let's jump right into it. College football. There was some huge news and things that happened this past weekend. I think the most notably being Ohio State being upset by nobody other than Purdue.
Yeah, but I got to say, I saw that a lot closer game than how Vegas had it. You know, they had it -14, came down to -13. So I definitely seeing Purdue to hang in. They ended up not only just upsetting them, destroyed them.
And who thought that was going to happen in an Urban Meyer-led team, especially with Haskins playing as good as he was, and Ohio State was only able to muster 20 points. So with that, you had Purdue on the flip side able to go out and hang 49.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I just think Ohio State is, their schedule is weak. They haven't played nobody to date, and, I think we see more losses coming to them this year.
That would be quite interesting if that were to happen. And, Ohio State has some tough matchups going on later into the season, including the big one at the end, Michigan. Yeah. So, I don't know. We'll see how the rest of their season goes. But speaking of Michigan, they got themselves a marquee win against a rival of theirs, Michigan State, taking it to them 21-7. What are your thoughts on that?
Their defense is really good.
Absolutely.
I think after they played Notre Dame to open the season, I think now their defense is they're just intact. Granted, I don't know that they'd necessarily beat Notre Dame, but I think it would be a closer game if they played again.
Well, the thing is with Notre Dame, you got to look at too is that they've made the change from at that game when they beat Michigan from Brandon Wimbush to now playing Ian Book, who also started the bowl game for them last year when they beat LSU in that thriller.
Yeah, well, that's night and day. Book, he can play. But I do think, I just think Michigan. I see Michigan making the 4. I think they make the playoff.
Now, if they make the playoff, could we possibly see a rematch of Notre Dame and Michigan?
2-4, maybe.
Could happen.
See it, and then you got, of course, Bama. Who sneaks in the 4?
Well, you still have Clemson hanging around in there too. So, if you got Clemson, Alabama, Notre Dame, Michigan could be that number 4. But we'll see how things shake up because there were a lot of big moves in the AP Top 25.
A lot.
Obviously, most notably being Ohio State dropping 9 spots from number 2 to number 11. Now? UCF is still sitting number 10 last I checked because...
Disrespected.
Oh, well, they also had to squeak it out this past weekend.
I know, but still. How many games in a row is that?
Oh, I think they're up to 19 or so.
And they knocked off Auburn last year.
That's true, and you know what? I think UCF should get a little bit more respect. But still, the head of the college football subcommittee who selects our actual participants in the playoff said there is a route for UCF to make it. However, they're probably going to have to dominate the rest of the way.
You got to put some respect on that name.
You got to.
So many in a row. They deserve a shot, for sure.
And I absolutely have to agree. But we also need to look at some of the big risers we've had in the polls, most notably Washington State.
Yeah. Okay, beat Oregon. They were manhandling them in the first half. I don't know if you've seen the game.
Oh, absolutely manhandling.
But, Oregon came back, made it a touchdown game. But Washington State looks good. Although I do think they might get let down this weekend.
Oh, they just might. And with that, we're going to go ahead and shift gears into looking ahead this weekend and looking at some of our matchups. And we'll go ahead and start with the team we're just talking about, number 14, Washington State, at number 24, Stanford.
Mm-hmm. I like Stanford in this one. Bryce Love, they got a good defense. Washington State's tough, though. But that line, what do they got that line at?
Well, I think it started at 4.5, but I think it shrunk down to 2.5 now.
Ooh, that's scary. What'd you say Washington State is?
Oh, 14 and 24.
14 going to 24, and 24 is favored.
Yeah, how often do you see that happen?
Yep. And the money is on Washington State. I don't know. Looks like a little trap game to me, but
I think it is a trap game. But the one thing I always worry about with these kinds of matchups is that with Bryce Love, he's had some injury concerns this season, and I don't know if that's going to come into play against that Washington State defense.
yeah, they looked good last week, but then again, they were at home.
Yeah, that definitely can make a big, big difference. Definitely a big difference. But we're going to go ahead and shift gears to a very classic rivalry, UF at Georgia. The Gators and the Bulldogs, the world's largest outdoor cocktail whatever. I tell you what, it's just going to be madness in Jacksonville. I can tell you that. Because you're going to have number 9 at number 7. Both teams have so much on the line. And, Georgia is favored in this one, but they did take a walloping from LSU. So who ends up coming out on top in this one?
Man, this one's a tough one. I'm actually thinking about going up there. So Georgia's offense getting punished last weekend. The Gators' defense has just been rifling hot. I don't know. It's going to be the tale of who's stronger, Georgia's offense, Gators' defense. What do you think?
Honestly, with that, I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be a great matchup. But on the flip side, both these teams have so much to play for, and they're going to be on such a large stage that either team could come out and have a letdown. Now, Georgia, I feel, might not, just given the fact they've already had to take a letdown against LSU. But honestly, in this matchup, it's anybody's game. So, I don't know. We'll see how that works out. But we're also going to look at another team, I should say, that could end up with a letdown, and that's Purdue at Michigan State.
I talked to you about this one, so I definitely think, I think Purdue goes over there all hyped on the big win, although that whole story with that young man, the Purdue fan.
Yes.
Man, that's touching. It's touching.
Oh, very touching.
That. So at the end of the day, kind of rooting for Purdue in that aspect, but when I look in this game from Vegas' aspect, looks like a letdown game. Michigan State's defense is no joke. They're good. And
they're at home on top of that. So at the end of the day, they're also coming off a letdown against Michigan. You got to think that they're going to be hungry for this one.
Yeah. You know that. Going to be hungry at home. Defense is good. I don't know. I see that Michigan State taking that game 24-14, somewhere in that.
24-14. I think they're going to take. I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I think it's going to end up being 20-17, but still Michigan State. So we go ahead and backtrack a little bit. I still have Georgia going up against UF 24-17. What's your take on that one?
I think you're pretty close. Although I could see the upset with the Gators winning like a 21-17 game.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more so like what you're saying, 28-20, 24-17.
And it's always a good matchup either way, so we'll see who ends up taking that one. And going all the way back to the beginning, Washington State at Stanford, honestly, I'm going to take Washington State in this one, and I think they're going to win it big. I think it's going to be 38-24 Washington State.
Yeah, no, I think all these games are going to be low scoring. I'm more like a 24-21 Stanford.
That definitely would be interesting. But we'll definitely see how that ends up working out. But we're going to go ahead and shift gears to the big boys now and look to the NFL. And some interesting things that happened this weekend, some even historic, some would say, is that you look at the matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the Baltimore Ravens. Tucker misses his first extra point ever.
You got to cut him some slack, though. I mean, he's never missed one, right?
Never.
So you definitely got to cut him some slack. Definitely, it
Yeah.
happens.
And it does happen. But the big thing I look at is that his face was the most priceless thing I had ever seen after he had missed that extra point. You literally could probably make memes for days off of that.
Yeah, it was funny.
It definitely was funny. But the New Orleans Saints took that against the Baltimore Ravens 24-23 on the road in Baltimore. But we're going to go to another letdown where the Redskins were able to pull it out against Dallas 2017.
Did you see that? The ending? The false start. Backed him up 5 yards, and then blink.
Right off the upright. That was just pitiful.
Yeah.
But honestly, I feel like it's a summation of the Dallas season at this point, where now they're trying to grasp at straws, and they ended up pulling a big one, though, being able to get Amari Cooper. So,
how do you think that's going to work out there?
I mean, if Amari Cooper can come in and get any kind of rapport with Dak Prescott to get that passing game going, he's going to end up filling in as a wonderful wide receiver for what Des Bryant used to be able to give to that offense years ago with Tony Romo.
He hasn't shown up this year, last year. They keep talking about him. I don't see him showing up, so why any different in Dallas, man?
I don't know. I feel like when you go from the barn burner of Oakland, which it's becoming, to something a little better, especially at least with an offensive line, they should be able to maybe produce something.
Yeah, definitely better than Oakland, but I don't know. I don't see high hopes in him like you do anyways.
Well, it really is going to end up coming down if Dak Prescott can get him the ball, which at times has been kind of difficult for that Dallas offense.
Well, Elliott last week, nothing either.
Yeah, and that's another letdown is that you're not able to take the pressure off the quarterback because your running game has been stalling when last season it was such a high point.
Yeah, right. He was tearing it up last year. Now he's falling over when he hits the line.
I know. He gets there and it's like, hey, I don't remember how to do this, so.
What kind of fantasy points do you have last week? Like 5, 2, 4, 5?
Not enough.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. But we're also going to look at another one that was able to net a ton of fantasy points, and that was Kansas City absolutely blowing out the Cincinnati Bengals 45-10.
They're the real deal. I think, I don't want to talk too soon because their defense, although it looked kind of good against the Bengals. But the Bengals suck, But, the Red Rifle, he doesn't win on primetime games.
That is true, but a big thing that I look at is that you have a rookie not necessarily a rookie quarterback, but a first-year starter who's come in after sitting behind Alex Smith for a year, who ended up going 28-39 for 358 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, and had 45 yards on the ground.
He's impressive this year, man.
And what's crazy about this is that he does this week in and week out.
Yeah, throws left hand, right hand, throwing it this way, crazy on the fly, and
yeah, I saw him switch hands where he was able to get that ball downfield and score a touchdown. Who does that?
He's the real deal. I don't know if like the NFL when you see all those mobile quarterbacks, they figure it out usually, but it's not really mobile. They're chasing this guy and he's moving this way, that way, and he throws it over and then touchdown.
Absolutely.
His completion rating is better when he's on the run all over the place looking like a madman.
He ends up just making it work. And the thing is that people have been saying he's been putting up almost video game-like numbers just because he's able to get out of the pocket, get into space, and be able to allow the timing for his receivers to get into space to get the ball to them. And it's just been pinpoint almost every time.
It's crazy, right?
It's crazy. You know what? If you have him in fantasy, someone is killing it right now. You better be winning your fantasy league.
You got him in late rounds.
Yeah, you got him in late rounds. Yeah. So bravo to you for picking up Mahomes. But I tell you what, it's been a crazy season, but we still have more games to come. So we definitely got to look ahead and see what we have going on this weekend. And I think a big one people are looking at for sure is Browns at Steelers, the tie game rematch.
Yeah.
Steelers are favored by 8, and they're at home. But do they get the win?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, even though they said that Bell was going to play, right? But he's not.
No, he's not,
but
and they've been saying he's going to be back soon.
He was going to be back this week, and
yeah.
now he's not. But I just think, I don't know, it could get interesting. But I definitely see the Steelers winning this one comfortably. But, hey, the last one was tied, so.
Well, the thing is, too, is I feel like this could be a letdown for Cleveland just because of the fact that they're coming off an overtime loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where they lost 26-23. So with that, do you think that the emotion of losing that one is going to end up hampering them from winning this one?
Man, listen, I think with Cleveland, it's every year. It's going to be good. We're going to be good. Every year, right?
And then the Browns go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
In a manner of speaking.
More like the toilet bowl.
But I tell you what, it's always been a letdown for them for years. It's not the 50s, where they had Otto Graham, running and gunning left and right, winning 8 championships. They haven't, I don't think, been good, honestly, in over almost 20 years.
Their uniforms aren't good. The colors aren't good.
They draft bad players.
Jersey's not good.
Yeah, you drafted Johnny Manziel, Browns. Keep that in mind.
Johnny Manziel. That's another story. That's for another day.
That's for another day. Most definitely for another day. So with that, I'm going to say the Steelers are going to win this one 24-10 and definitely win this rematch. How about you?
I'm thinking more like 32-20. Something in that area.
So the Browns get some points on the board.
Yeah. Pittsburgh got a lot of letdown spots in that defense.
Yeah, that is a good point. But from there, though, we're going to look at another team that's been letting down against a team that somehow has been a surprise of the season, and that's the Redskins at the Giants. Redskins are favored by 1 on the road against a horrific Giants team that their only bright spot has been Saquon Barkley.
Right. So -1, what does that tell you?
That's true. That is a good look at that because, the Redskins seem to be a little bit problematic, and they're honestly not too far off from being in the same spot the Giants are.
Right, but if it's -1, I can rest assured that Vegas is taking all the money on the Redskins. And if they don't adjust that line higher, those terrible, horrible Giants are going to beat the Redskins. That's just how it goes. I see this time in and time out of how the lines work.
That, and with Saquon Barkley running the way he is, the Redskins have not been able to experience a running back quite like him this season. So I fully expect that the Giants are going to be able to run the ball quite effectively against this Redskins defense.
Yeah, and man, Beckham Jr. These catches. I mean, this guy catches them, tiptoes his feet in, like it's like he practices these things. It's like insane.
If you watch that amazing game that they played on against the Atlanta Falcons, it was something to watch. Just because it seemed everything he caught was just right on the edge, just getting there, just being able to get that catch good. He's just working magic over there.
Yeah, but it's like he does that time in and time out. It's not like, oh man, what a good lucky catch. Like, this is every week he's making 5-6 crazy catches that no one can make. He's one of the best in the game.
Exactly. But you think after this season that he's not going to become more problematic, because we also looked at him early on in the season, and perhaps maybe it was just the struggles of the offense at the time, that he was becoming very disgruntled with the team. Do you think that becomes an issue going forward?
He's passionate, man. He cares, but you're getting paid in the big leagues. You can't have that. I don't know. I definitely think it could be a problem. Looks like it's under control right now, but at any time, right? We've seen this happen.
Oh, definitely. I think what's really going to come down to is if they start winning games or not. Because if they don't start winning games, then what are they going to be doing? They're just going to be trying to rack up stats and go back and end a dismal season. So I feel like it could end up boiling over. But if they want it to become an okay situation, they need to start winning, and they need to start winning now. So with this game, though, who do you got winning?
They're going to win. I can't even tell you the score. It might be something like, let's see, 24-20. Something like these two games were this weekend where the Giants lost theirs, but the Redskins won theirs. But just the Giants coming out top in a close game.
See, I feel like the Giants offense is going to be able to get going quite enough. I feel like the running game will be good, but the passing game, because whether you're throwing to OBJ or not, you still have Eli Manning at quarterback. And honestly, he's just an antiquity sitting back there waiting to be broken. So I feel, honestly, at the end of the day, the Redskins are going to end up taking this one 28-17, and it's going to be yet another loss piled on to the pile that the Giants already have going for the 2018 season. Well, that's why the games are played.
Right.
So at the end of the day, though, we're going to shift gears to a much more intriguing matchup with the Saints at the Vikings. Now, the Saints are favored by 1.5, but the Vikings, I feel like, want to try and make sure the Saints don't come into their house and try and take one from them because of what happened in the NFC divisional round last year.
I agree. It's crazy. That line flip-flopped. It started off Vikings favorite. Now Saints favorite. That's going to be a good game. Rematch. What do you think there?
Honestly, there's a lot that could happen. One thing you got to look at is the Vikings are going to have a different quarterback this time around now with Kirk Cousins in the lineup versus Case Keenum leading them. However, that Vikings offense is still humming to a certain extent. The running game's been lackluster at best, but that receiving game is still going, especially when you have Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph and all these great weapons out there that are able to go out there and make great plays and get you down the field and get you touchdowns, which is going to win you the game at the end of the day. The Saints, though, have Drew Brees. The now new number one in passing yards in a career.
And he's got Michael Thomas.
You got Michael Thomas out there, the two-headed beast of Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram.
That's crazy. Talented.
So who do you think ends up taking this one?
Well, in the game like that, you got to take the home small dog. But that being said, New Orleans is, I think, underrated right now. I think they're playing good football, and everybody's taking it for granted. I think they I don't know. I think it's going to be a really good game, but, in this spot, you got to take the home team.
Yeah, I look at this, though, and I feel like the Saints really can take this because the thing that you have with Case Keenum versus Kirk Cousins is that Kirk Cousins seems to sometimes make big mistakes at key moments. And that ends up being something that will end up costing his team. Now, they're currently 4-2-1. The one that tied against Green Bay, which partly was officiating, partially bad play calling. However, they're still a good team. Now, they didn't start that way, as you remember. They started out quite dismally, but they've been able to recover quite well with a great passing attack and a defense that, again, started out horribly, but now has started to come on. But I don't feel the Vikings can stop the Saints, and I have the Saints winning a tight one, 28-27.
Yeah, I could see, I can see what you're saying, but I can also see the Vikings protecting the home field and winning something like you're saying, like a 28, 24, 21, 28. you know.
Something that's real close.
Because I could see that game going both ways. I really don't.
Definitely.
I could make a case here to you why the Saints would win. Same way I can make the Vikings. But home team, what's that, Sunday night game?
That's a Sunday night game, 8:20.
Sunday night game, home team. You know, you got to take them in this spot.
You know, I can't argue against that. And honestly, I feel like what is really going to happen is that it's going to come down to probably whoever has the ball the last. Just because these teams are going to be able to score, but they're also going to get their stops. But I feel like they're so evenly matched in so many ways that this really could come down to the final possession.
Yeah. We have to see on the final score.
We'll have to see on the final score. So you make sure that you check back on our next episode of Final Score that will have come out next week. But for now, I'm Chris Wilson. This is Stephen Morelli of Final Score, only on
The Podcast City Network. Podcast City Network.